Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd, fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut. Sadaqallahu mawlana al-azim. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Habiballah. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Nabiyallah. Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nurallah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. मेरे प्यारे आका सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के प्यारे दीवानों, मस्जिद उस्मानी में सुन्नी दावत इस्लामी के इस इज्तिमा में अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह हम हाजिर हैं, and I'm supposed to speak in English. So alhamdulillah, this ijtima is conducted every week for you, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward all those brothers who take part in it and who make an effort to arrange those ijtimas for you. Say subhanallah. Subhanallah. Say ameen. Ameen. I made a dua, so what do you say? Ameen. Ameen. Alhamdulillah. And once in a while we try to make it special. We try to choose a topic on either aqidah or amal, so that we can strengthen your beliefs and we can make you a stronger Muslim. And today is one of those sessions where inshallah tabarak wa ta'ala we are going to talk about a very, very important topic. Alhamdulillah. And alhamdulillah, it's good to see you guys here, mashallah. It's good to see the sisters. I've been told there are a lot of sisters who have come, mashallah. And also all those people who actually arrange the program and work for the program. Again, I say may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward all of them in both the worlds, inshallah. The weather outside is not too good, so alhamdulillah you are at the best place anyway. You're not missing out on anything. The thing is, it's a lose-lose situation with the weather. If the weather is good outside, people don't want to come to the masjid. If it's raining, then people are put off to come to the masjid. If it's raining, who's going to go? If it's snowing again, people are put off. But those people who have the love of Allah and love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they want to learn, no matter what the weather is, they will come and learn. Because learning is a passion. Learning is a passion. And ilm is your best companion. People fail to understand this. In this country, where people get depressed so easily, where you don't find many friends, and even if you find friends, they are the wrong kinds of friends. Let me tell you, the best friends that you will find is books, is knowledge. If you have your books and if you're passionate about reading, about learning, you don't need any other friends. You won't feel bored. Because alhamdulillah, there is an ocean of knowledge waiting there to be explored. So we should read, we should learn, because this is the ilm, alhamdulillah, which will not only help us in this world, but the ilm will also come in our graves. And this ilm will inshallah give us high status on the day of Qiyamah. On the day of Qiyamah. Because in this world we give high status to those people who get the secular education. Doctors are held in high esteem, scientists are held in high esteem, and so on. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala says on the day of Qiyamah, obviously this won't count, even though it is important for this world, but this won't count over there. What will count over there is how much knowledge of deen you have. And the more the knowledge of deen you have, the more elevated status Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you, inshallah. Now, the topic today, why did we choose this topic? And why so now? This is the time when people are coming back from Hajj. And what they have seen over there, Allahu Akbar, it makes our blood boil. It really shakes our iman. Because when we visit the Prophet ﷺ, when we visit the beautiful city of Medina, when we visit the historical city of Medina, the only thing, the only belief, the only concept we see that the authorities there are promoting is that the Prophet is dead. That's it. They don't give any importance to the history of the Prophet ﷺ. They don't give any significance to the love of the Prophet ﷺ. They don't give any importance to the historical sites in Medina. The only thing they stress upon is the Prophet is dead, the Sahaba are dead, all those in the Baqi are dead. This is all they say. And that is the reason why when we visit the Prophet ﷺ, Allahu Akbar, the Habib of Allah, whom we are supposed to love the most, the Habib of Allah, whose love is our Iman. The Prophet ﷺ himself says that a person is not a true mu'min until and unless he loves me more than his parents, his children, and his own self. So we love him. And alhamdulillah, we from faraway places, we always hear about the Prophet ﷺ. We always imagine the Prophet ﷺ. We always learn about the love of the Prophet ﷺ. So when we go there, we want to stand in front of our beloved ﷺ. We want to pray our salutations and pay our respect to the Prophet ﷺ. But what do we get there? You go there, you stand in front of the Jali Mubarak and they say, just do salam and move on. Just do salam and move on. We say, Allahu Akbar, why? This is the place where we should live and die. The Prophet ﷺ says, if you can, die in Medina. Not only live in Medina, die in Medina. This is the Prophet ﷺ saying, and here these are the people who don't even let us stand. They don't even let us take the wasila of the Prophet ﷺ. They don't even let us stand in respect. Nowadays when we stand like this, I mean before they used to say don't raise your hands. So mashallah our Sunnis, they stopped raising their hands and they started to tie their hands like this. Now they say don't do this. Why? Because this is a state of namaz. This is an action of namaz. This is also an action of namaz. Is it not? If we leave our hands to the side, this is also an action of namaz. So what do? Put the hands on the head or at the back? What do you want us to do? This is a sign of respect. When we stand in front of the Prophet ﷺ, this is the sign of respect. This is what the Sahaba taught us. This is what the Tabain and the Aimma and Mujtahideen taught us. But these people, the only thing they emphasize on is that the Prophet is dead. We want to prove today. And I will make a statement, and inshallah we'll try to remember this statement. We'll take this away with us at the end of the lecture. Is that the Prophet died, but he's not dead. Say subhanallah. The Prophet died. Nobody denies that the Prophet died. We all know everybody has to die. The Prophet ﷺ also tasted death, but he is not dead. What do you mean he's dead? Does that mean he's not a Rasul anymore? Does that mean that all those roles that were conferred upon him in the Quran does not exist anymore? Are you saying that he is not Rahmatul lil Alameen anymore? When you say he is dead, don't come here and don't ask anything from him, don't pay your respects to him sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Does that mean he does not exist anymore? I mean, do you pray the kalima that he was a prophet once upon a time and not anymore? Astaghfirullah. No, inshallah we will learn that the Prophet is alive. Tu zinda hai wallah, tu zinda hai wallah, meri chashme alam se chup jane wale. But before that, we need to understand the basic concept of life after death. We'll take this in 3 stages. First is we need to understand what happens to ordinary people when we die. What happens when you die? What will happen when I die? Even science, they stop at death. Once a person dies, science cannot give any answers to what happens after that. Is it so? Any scientist here who can say what happens after death? They don't even know what happens at the time of death. And this is the reason they are now allowing people to get themselves killed, thinking that this is going to be the end of their suffering. Little do they know that this is the beginning of their suffering. Those people who commit suicide, they think they are going to end the miseries of this world by killing themselves. They don't know that that will be the beginning of the miseries. Because we know exactly what happens at the time of death. We know what happens after, soon after you pass away. We know what happens before you are buried. We know what happens when you are being buried. We know what happens in your qabr. We know how you will be raised on the day of Qiyamah. And the Prophet ﷺ told us to the extent when people will go to Jannah and people will go to Jahannam. So our knowledge is complete about not only about this life, but what happens after you die. Life after death too. Now what I'm going to cover today, there could be so many arguments that I could be here all day, all night, and the arguments wouldn't finish. But I'm going to use the arguments written in this book, which is Notions That Must Be Corrected. This is obviously the English translation of an Arabic book, and the Arabic book was written by Sheikh Muhammad bin Alwi al-Maliki rahmatullah alayh. You must have heard this name. He is a buzurg, a sheikh, an alim, a sayyid of the recent past. He died about, 7-8 years ago. He used to live in Makkah al-Mukarramah. All his life he lived in Makkah al-Mukarramah. He is a sayyid, that means he is a descendant of the beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he was living in Makkah and he was a teacher in Haram-e-Pak. And his father was an imam. His father and grandfather were the imams of Masjid Haram. Alhamdulillah. So this concept which I'm going to put forward is not from Bareilly or India. This is also the concept from Makkah. And also the concept from Medina, inshallah. This is a concept from Arab Sharif. So nobody should reject saying that this is from the Indo-Pak region. Now, the life after death. The thing is that when we die, what happens? Quran mentions 2 death and 2 life. Remember this. Quran mentions 2 deaths and 2 lives. كَيْفَ تَكْفُرُونَ بِاللَّهِ. How can you deny Allah? وَكُنْتُمْ أَغْوَاتًا فَأَحْيَاكُمْ. First you were dead. First we were dead, that means we were sperms, or even before that God knows what we were and how we were. We don't know. Okay? But we were in the category of dead. This is how we began. We were dead. كَيْفَ تَكْفُرُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَكُنْتُمْ أَمْوَاتًا فَأَحْيَاكُمْ. Then Allah gave you life. Allah gave you life. This is the first life. Okay? We already had 1 death. We were dead before. Allah gave us 1 life. فَأَحْيَاكُمْ ثُمَّ يُمِيتُكُمْ. Then Allah will kill you. He will give you death. Second death. Is that right? That is when we all will die. That is when the Prophet ﷺ died. That is when the companions died. Okay? So, كَيْفَ تَكْفُرُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَكُنْتُمْ أَمْوَاتًا فَأَحْيَاكُمْ ثُمَّ يُمِيتُكُمْ ثُمَّ يُحْيِيكُمْ. And then Allah will raise you again. Allah will give you life again. This is the second life. This is the second life. ثُمَّ إِلَيْهِ تُحْشَرُونَ. And then you will be raised. So, if you die for the second time and then Allah gave you life, which is that life which is Allah talking about? Before you are being raised. Because Allah mentioned being raised after. But He's saying that before being raised, there is a life. This is the life which is the life after death. After we die, there is a life out there. After we die, there is a whole world out there, which is called Barzakh. And you know what Barzakh is? The Prophet ﷺ is called Barzakh-e-Kubra. Barzakh is something which is connected on 2 sides. The Prophet ﷺ is a Barzakh. Barzakh-e-Kubra. The greatest Barzakh. Why? Because he is on one side connected to the people, but on the other side he is connected to Allah. On the other side he is connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is connected to the ghaib. How can people deny the ilm ghaib of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when the Prophet is connected to the ghaib? Everything that he mentioned is ghaib. And that is a different topic. But this is the reason why he is called and termed as Barzakh al-Kubra. Now Barzakh, the life after death, is also called Barzakh. Why? Because that is also connected to the world. That means there is some connection to the world, but there is also connection to the other side, which is the hereafter. So that is the life in between this life and the hereafter. Because you are not raised yet, you are not on the day of judgment yet, you are somewhere in between. So how many deaths Allah talk about? To take this, remember this. This is an argument you can put forward. How many deaths Allah mentions? And how many lives? 2. So we were already dead before. This is the first life. When we die again, that is the second death. And as soon as we die, we will be raised again, we will be made alive again. That is the second life. And remember that once you are made alive, after that, you will never taste death. You will never die after that. In fact, in this book it is recorded that Imam Jalaluddin Suyuti rahmatullah alayh, Imam Jalaluddin Suyuti rahmatullah alayh, he states, and he is an authority in deen. When you say Imam Jalaluddin Suyuti, whatever he says has to be accepted. He is such an authority. He is a mujaddid of his time. He is from the A'immah Deen. He says that there is a consensus. He is saying that there is a consensus. That means there is no doubt about it. Nobody denies it. Nobody rejects this notion. What is it? That soul, once created, never dies. Soul, once created, never dies. That means when Allah created the souls in the alam arwah, okay, long before we were born, the soul was already there. Allah created the souls. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gathered all the souls together, He took an oath. Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord? And we all said, Qalu bala, indeed you are, Ya Allah, why not you are? So this is the promise Allah reminds us over and over again in the Quran. Remember the promise you made when you were still a soul, when you had not come to this world, when I asked you that, am I not your Lord? And you said yes. So then how can you go against my commands when you have come to this world? How can we? We believe that He is our Master. We believe that He is our Creator. How can we deny and how can we reject His commands? So, the soul was created. All that happened when we came to this world was that the soul was given a carrier. What is the carrier? The body. The body is a carrier. Now the soul, which was free before, is confined. Is confined to this body. And that is why we have all this space, time, okay? Because the body is thaqeel, it is actually physical. It is solid. It takes time to go from one place to the other. Okay, there is distance. There is time. Whereas for the soul is from the alam-e-amr, from the other world. And there things are latif. They are not sakil. They are not physical. They are latif. They are latif. They are subtle. And there is no time or there is no distance as such. And I'll give you an example. You know Malakul Maut? I'm not following my notes, but chalo, whatever is coming to my mind. Malakul Maut, okay? The angel of death. One Nabi was a friend. I forget his name. It was Ibrahim alayhi salam or Idris alayhi salam. Was the friend of Malakul Maut, the angel of death. Once they stayed together for 3 days. After 3 days, the Nabi asked Malakul Maut, the angel of death, has nobody died in the world in these 3 days? He said, oh, plenty of people have died. But he said, you've always been with me. You never went anywhere to extract the soul. You've always been with me all these 3 days. You were with me. He said, I don't need to be somewhere. I don't need to physically go somewhere to extract the soul. The entire world is right there in front of me. From one place, I can look and do tasarruf in the entire world. This is Malakul Maut. If this is Malakul Maut, imagine the status of Sayyidul Anbiya. Imagine why can't, remember something, if something is possible for makhluk, then it cannot be shirk. Okay? If Malakul Maut can be at one place and he can actually influence the entire world, then our Prophet can also do that same. Why can't he do it, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? If Malakul Maut can do this, then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam indeed can do it. So there is no big deal if we call out to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from here and we say, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, हम यहाँ से पुकारे, वहाँ वो सुने, काने लाले करामत पे लाखों सलाम. Okay, this time and distance, it is only for this world. And this reminds me of a beautiful incident, because today is the day, or yesterday was, of Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala. Is that right? Sayyidina Umar, he is giving khutbah in Jummah. Okay, Masjid Nabawi Sharif. Jummah time, he is giving khutbah. Whilst giving khutbah, he calls out, Ya Sariya al-Jabal, Ya Sariya al-Jabal, Ya Sariya al-Jabal. Sariya is a Sahabi. He is fighting a war for the Muslims at the border of Iraq and Iran. That is Nahaban. Okay, at the border of Iraq and Iran. So the Sahaba who was sat in front of Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala, they heard it, but nobody dared ask anything. When Sariya came back, after a long time, he said, once Amirul Mu'mineen was giving khutbah, and he called out your name in the middle of the khutbah, and he said, the mountain, Ya Sariya, Jabal, mountain. What was that about? He said that at that time, we were fighting. We were in the state of a war. And the enemy were coming from behind the mountain. Suddenly we heard the shout and the voice of Amirul Mu'mineen, who alerted us that look towards the mountain, because the enemy is coming from there. Allahu Akbar. Now Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala, who is the ghulam of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is the Khalifa of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is in Masjid Nabawi Sharif in Medina, and he is calling out to Iraq. No Sahabi disputes that. No Sahabi. This is recorded in the books of Hadith. No Sahabi disputes. So if Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala's voice can reach from one corner of the world to the other, why can't the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's voice? Okay? But anyway, let us look at what argument our Shaykh gives. The first thing is, we need to prove life after death. We'll first look at for ordinary people, then we'll look at for the martyrs, and then, inshallah, for the prophets. So for ordinary people, the dead, they can hear. Okay? And for this, the Shaykh provides a story from the Battle of Badr. You know what happened in the Battle of Badr? That we were only 313, we were facing a mighty army, and the Prophet ﷺ, he came out a day before and he pointed out that this is where Abu Jahl is going to fall, this is where Utbah is going to fall, this is where Shayba is going to fall. He is actually pointing out where these people are going to die, where these people are going to be slain. I mean, nobody a day before could believe that these Rusa, these leaders of Quraysh will be killed, because these were only 313. They had a mighty army. But the Prophet ﷺ said, no, this is going to happen. And the Sahaba obviously, they believed. After the war, when they came to their place, those people whom the Prophet ﷺ had mentioned, they had fallen exactly at the place where he had pointed out. Exactly at the place. Now what did they do with all those who were slain? They gathered all the bodies and they dug a pit and they buried all of them. Now the Prophet ﷺ goes to the mouth of the pit and he starts to talk to them in words like these, that did I not tell you that I was the Prophet? How did you find my promise now? Did I not tell you this will happen if you don't believe in me? And so on. Somewhere along these lines. Now the Sahaba, Sayyidina Umar, for example, he came forward and he said, Ya Rasulullah, you're talking to dead people? You're talking to dead people? Sayyidina Umar, the Prophet said to Sayyidina Umar, that, Oh Umar, you here know better than these people. That means even though they are dead, and who are they? Kafir. They are not even mu'min. They are kuffar. The Prophet ﷺ is saying that these people, or you, O Umar, don't hear any more or any better than these people. That means they hear exactly as you do. The only difference is that you can reply and they cannot reply. They cannot reply, but you can reply. So this proves that the one who dies, doesn't matter you are a mu'min or a kafir or whoever you are, you can hear. Because what actually hears is what? Not the body, not just the ears, it is the soul. Is it not? All the functions are performed by the soul. And that is why when a person dies, okay, the body is there, he still has lips, he still has eyes, he still has the ears, but that body now cannot see. Why? Because the soul is missing. So we get to know that the actual powerhouse is the soul. Soul is the one who provides the power to talk. Soul is the one who provides the power to walk. Soul is the one which actually hears. But in this world, you need a medium. In this world, you need to, if you want to hear, you need to hear through the ears. If you want to speak, the soul needs the mouth to speak. If you want to walk, the soul needs legs to walk. But in the other world, body does not count. So you can still hear, you might still go from one place to the other, you can even speak, and we're going to look at one example each of all of these things, proving that soul can do all these things which the body did in this world. Are you following? समझ में आ रही है बात? Okay. I'm trying to obviously make it as simple as possible. I'm not actually reading it because then you'll go to sleep. Now, we have heard that the dead hears. Now the dead can also talk. Look at the hadith. Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala and his companion, they passed by a grave. Sayyidina Abu Hurairah said to his companion, send salam to the grave. Don't we do that? Don't we say salams? What an irony. You can say salam, you can't say anything else. Why not? I mean, if they can hear the salam, they can hear the other things as well. How can it be they can only hear salam and not anything else? So, Sayyidina Abu Hurairah said, send your salams. Now the other person said, to a grave, to a dead person? He said, of course. If they see you, if they saw you in this life, then they will know you, they will remember you, and they will also reply to you. They will also reply to you. That means the dead, they also reply. So whenever you pray durood on the Prophet ﷺ, what would happen? The Prophet would hear it. But the Prophet would also reply. दुरूद पढ़ने में हमारा ही भला है कि हम जब पढ़ेंगे तो सरकार हम पर पढ़ेंगे इंशाअल्लाह. When we pray, the Prophet ﷺ is going to reply, and when the Prophet ﷺ will reply, that means peace be upon you, O my servant. Subhanallah. The Prophet is praying for us sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Subhanallah. So again, the dead, what we saw was the dead can hear, the dead can also speak. They actually reply. It's a hadith. So the dead can also reply. Now, how about the dead having feelings? You know, anger, what is it? Is it something physical? Or is it something which is more subtle? It is a feeling. Can you see anger? You can see the effects of anger. You can't see anger, can you? If you are happy, can you see happiness? Yes, you can see the effects of happiness on a person. You cannot see what is happiness. Can you? You cannot cannot see if somebody is annoyed. If I annoy you, okay, I can see the effects of it, but I can't see what annoying is, okay, because these are feelings. So now let us see if dead have feelings or not. The Prophet ﷺ once saw a person, he was reclining on a grave. He was reclining on a grave, which many people might have seen that nowadays they don't do it, but in India, Pakistan and other places, people actually live in the graveyard. I mean, the city is so full that people actually live in the qabristan. Within the qabr, or at the size of the qabr, people have their huts and tents and they live there. So this person, he is reclining on the grave. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? Hadith, that do not annoy the inhabitant of the grave. That means, say if I'm sat here on a chair, and if somebody is leaning on that chair, I would be annoyed. In the same way, this person who is in the grave, he might be a skeleton, he might be whatever he is, but he still has feelings. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? Do not annoy, and this is the Shaykh writing. Okay, Shaykh Muhammad bin Ali al-Maliki is writing this, and he is actually quoting a hadith that do not annoy the inhabitants. उनको सताओ नहीं, उनको तकलीफ ना दो. और ये कहा भी गया है कि जब आप जाएं कब्रिस्तान में, take your shoes off if possible, because they can even hear the noise that your shoes make. Okay, and they are annoyed by that too. So you've got to be very quiet when you actually go into the qabristan, because it is like going to their house. When somebody comes to your house, they have to be respectful. They can't do anything, they can't sit anywhere, they can't make noise, they can't touch things. In the same way, when you are going to the graveyard, you are going in their territory. They are living there. So you've got to be very respectful. Now, the Prophet ﷺ, a Sahabi, Amr bin Hazm radiallahu ta'ala, states that the Prophet ﷺ saw me reclining by the side of the grave, and he said to me, get away from the grave, lest you annoy the inhabitant of the grave. You heard this, but the continuation, the addition here is, and the person in the grave might annoy you. A retaliation. The person in the grave might annoy you. तुमने उसे सताया, वो तुम्हें सताएगा. How would that happen? I don't know. Okay? He might come to harm that person. But the Prophet ﷺ is saying that he will annoy you because you are annoying him. A hadith. Now, there are plenty of hadiths, but we quickly want to move on. As I said, one hadith for each point. Now, how about the dead visiting each other? You must have heard that, back home they would say that on Thursdays, some of them would actually leave the door open. They would leave the door open. ऐसा करते हैं, दरवाजा खुला रखते थे कि भाई मरे हुए की रूहें आएंगी. They wouldn't leave the doors, but still, ये उनकी मोहब्बत थी. They would leave. They would actually, I've seen this. They would leave the door open in the villages at the time of Maghrib on Thursdays, saying that, the arwah, the arwah, the souls of the dead will come. Okay? So some people might think, oh yeah, the dead person is going to come. Let's see what happens. The Ibn Siri, rahmatullah alayhi, says that the dead shall visit each other in their burial shroud. The dead, they actually visit each other. And it is also stated that when you are giving kafan and so on to the body, okay, when you die and you are being laid on this stretcher and somebody gives you bath, somebody is giving you ghusl, we think that that is a dead person, he doesn't know what's happening. But it is stated that the dead person can obviously see who is paying him. And it is for this reason, it should be the members of the family who should be around. Okay? We call people from outside, and there are some people, mashallah, who always help in these situations. But along with them, there should also be people from the family. Because this person who has just passed away, he has gone to the other world, he wants to see some familiar faces. He don't want to see somebody who he doesn't know. So if you don't know how to do ghusl, inshallah Mubbaligeen might teach you. But then if you are not confident enough, at least be present. So it is stated that they actually see who is bathing them. They actually see who is giving them kafan, who is shrouding them. And also, when the janazah is being taken, imagine this, because soon it is going to happen to you and me. We think it is far away, but it is not far away. Okay, even if it is 20 years down the line, it is still not far away. Okay, so imagine yourself on the janazah. You are dead, people are carrying you. Hai ghafil, wo kya jagah hai? Jahan 5 jate hain, 4 phirte. Okay, if you count the number of people going to the graveyard, they always come one less in number. Why? Because one of them has been left over there. Okay, left with his deeds. So, this person is on the janazah, he is being carried on the shoulders of other people. Now what happens? That person, the dead person, is shown what is waiting for him in his grave. If he is a mu'min, if he is a believer, if he is a pious person, he sees that his grave is a beautiful garden. Jannat ke baag mein se ek baag bani hui hai. Now, in hadith it states that the janazah or the dead person cries out that don't delay, take me soon, take me quickly, I need to go to my destination, I need to go to the grave. And it is stated that all the makhluk of Allah can hear this except the humans and maybe the jinns. We can't hear it, but the dead person is saying, come on quick, and that is why we need to bury the dead quickly. ये कुछ 2 दिन 3 दिन जो हम रखते हैं, हफ्ता रखते हैं, and sometimes it is due to the hospital formalities and so on. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala avoid these situations for all of us, inshallah. But this is one of the reasons, because that person is dying to go to his grave. He's dead, but he's dying to go to his grave. I want to go there, because of the bounties of Allah which is waiting for him. But on the other hand, if he's not a believer, if this person is a sinner, if he died without tawbah, if he's a transgressor, then what happens? He sees the fire in his grave. And now he shouts, don't take me. What are you doing? Where are you taking me? Please don't take me. Please don't take me. Lekin kaun sunta hai? We don't hear. If we heard it, we would have said, okay, keep him outside. Don't bury him. But we can't hear. So we do bury him. And there he goes in that fire. So he cries out. Again, in the hadith it proves he knows what is happening. He knows that I'm being taken. He can recognize the people. And not only that, look at it. He is in the janazah saying Usmani Masjid, but from that janazah he can see what is happening in his grave. Can he not? Is that what it means? He can see what is happening. How far is the Qabristan from here? How far is it? 5 miles. In this world, can you hear what's happening or see what's happening 5 miles away? Without a smartphone, I mean? No, you can't. But there, without iPhone, they can see these things. And they can talk. And they can actually view what is waiting for them in their qabr. Allahu Akbar. I don't think you need more convincing. Now, prayer in the grave again. Let's quickly move on. Let's look at some of the beautiful examples. Some of the companions, they were camping at a place and they heard somebody doing tilawat of Surah Mulk. Surah Mulk. And there was nobody to be seen, and they saw some graves there. They came to the Prophet ﷺ and they said, this is what we heard. The Prophet ﷺ said that Surah Mulk is the giver of salvation from the punishment of hell. That means, which implies that this person was praying Surah Mulk in the world, in the dunya, in his life, and so he continues to pray after as well. Isliye Surah Mulk ki tilawat karo. It is only 2 pages, but please try and pray this every night. Because if you pray this, inshallah, this will save you from the torments of qabr. Qabr ke azab, sawal jawab se najat, inshallah. Surah Mulk padne ki. Or inshallah you will be praying Surah Mulk in your grave too. Now, one beautiful example is, and this is again recorded by Imam Jalaluddin Suyuti rahmatullah ta'ala alayh. And in this example, it's unbelievable. Okay? He says that this person, his wife, died. After a while, he saw a dream where he saw all his family in the dream who had passed away, but he didn't see his wife. So he's asking, what's happened to my wife? Why can't I see my wife? They said that you did not shroud her well. The kafan wasn't good enough for her. She is ashamed to come out. Isliye, she did not come out to see you. They said, Allahu Akbar. What do I do now? I didn't know that. So wo kehta hai, the dead people are saying in his dream that this person is going to die soon. Send a fresh pair of kafan with him. Send a fresh pair of kafan with him. So now this person, he goes to that house, and there's an old man lying down, and he knows that he's going to die. So he says to his family, okay, this person is dying, I have a request that I want to put a pair of kafan in his grave. It's like पहले जाते थे ना, इंडिया जाते थे तो हम कहते थे कुछ सामान ले जाओ. India से when we came here, they say कुछ सामान हमारा ले जाओ, 2 kilo ले जाओ. When we used to open, it was like 5 kgs. So मरते वक्त भी we are not leaving them. When somebody is dying, फिर भी parcel भेज रहे हैं. Okay, take a parcel to the other world. They actually did it. They actually put a fresh pair of kafan in that old man's grave. And the next time he saw a dream, he saw his wife in that new kafan. Imam Jalaluddin Suyuti rahmatullah, he records this narration, this incident. That means so real is the life over there. If anything, we think of the other life as, a dark dungeon and a very, very small space in our grave. It is not so. Believe me, it is a much, much bigger world. I mean, if you are living on earth now, that life is like Jupiter for you, or even bigger than that. Okay, it's huge. That life is a lot bigger, a lot better, and the good thing is, you don't have to do amal over there. You don't have to do amal. The amal is only left to this small world. Look at the mercy of Allah. The amal is only for this small world, for this short world, for this short life, but the reward is in the big world. And this is only barzakh. When you go outside barzakh on the day of Qiyamah, that world does not have any limits. That world does not have any ends. So what we have spoken about until now is about common people. Okay? Common people when they die. It doesn't matter if they are Muslims, non-Muslims, whatever. Now let us go one stage above. Do I still have time here? Sunenge? It's the same one. Okay. Now, above the ordinary people and below the prophets are the martyrs. जिन्हें हम कहते हैं shaheed. Now about shaheed, Quran mentions, I'll just read the translation, that those who are slain in the way of Allah, they are dead. Don't say those who are slain in the path of Allah that they are dead. But look, Allah emphasizes. First He says, don't say they are dead, but they are alive. Okay? But they are alive, and you perceive not. You don't know. So why are these people? I mean, I am standing in Jannatul Baqi Sharif, and there are thousands and thousands of martyrs over there, and I am paying my respects. And one person comes and says, "Yes, a murda." These are all dead people. Quran says, don't even say they are dead, don't even perceive they are dead, don't even think they are dead. And these people are saying they are dead. For the Prophet ﷺ, they are saying they are dead. Allahu Akbar. Let's see. Look at the bodies. We have heard about the soul. The soul never dies. The soul can hear. The soul can see. The soul can speak. The soul can visit. Okay? All this happens for ordinary souls. With the martyrs, what happened? One step further. Their bodies are also intact. Their bodies are also intact. Historical evidence, when in the time of Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, okay, we know the Shuhada Uhud, they are buried right at the foot of the Mount Uhud. There was a flood, and because of the flood, their graves were opened. The graves of the Shuhada Uhud were opened, and what did they find? They found the body of Sayyidina Amir Hamza radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. In fact, just the foot was uncovered, and the foot was fresh, and blood was still flowing through it. Blood was still flowing through it. And going in closer to the Prophet ﷺ, they were actually building the wall of the grave Mubarak, alayhi salatu tasneem. The grave Mubarak, where the Prophet ﷺ and the two companions are buried, they were repairing it, and suddenly the wall collapsed, and a foot was uncovered. A foot was uncovered. Now there was an uproar in the society. Allah, whose foot could this be? There are 3 people buried there. Some thought, obviously, this is the time past the Sahabas. These are the Tabain and the Tabi Tabain. Okay? They have not seen the Prophet ﷺ. They don't know whose foot is this. And they thought, are we lucky enough to see the blessed foot of the Prophet ﷺ? Allahu Akbar. So the old people were called in, that is there someone who can identify whose foot is this? They all came for ziyarah. And there was a person called Sayyidina Urwa. And he recognized that this was the foot not of the beloved Prophet ﷺ, but of Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala. So many years after these shaykhan had passed away, the foot was still intact. That means for the martyrs, for the shuhada, not only the soul is intact, their bodies are intact too. Their bodies are salamat too. Now, in the Quran, as they mentioned, that they are given sustenance. They are given rosy. Whatever kind of rosy it is. They are alive. Quran says, don't say they are alive, they are dead. Don't even perceive that they are dead. Now, the Imam, Shaykh Muhammad says that it implies, like from analogical point of view, it implies, okay, even without any further evidence, that if the bodies of martyrs are intact, then you just have to question yourself, what would be the case of the bodies of the prophets? Yeah? Okay, you don't need any evidence. This is proving itself that if the bodies of the shuhada are intact, if Allah says that don't call them dead, I mean, an ordinary soul is also not dead. But Allah is saying about these people, don't call them dead, don't even perceive they are dead. And then, on top of that, their bodies are also intact. So you can only imagine the state of the bodies of the prophets, alayhi salatu tasneem. But let us make it more literal. The Prophet ﷺ says, what happened in Mi'raj, actually, there's a big hadith on Mi'raj. To cut it short, in Mi'raj, the Prophet ﷺ, when he came back, he is describing what happened. We all know the Prophet ﷺ met all the prophets, in fact. They are praying. Who are praying? Are the souls praying? No, the bodies are praying. The Prophet ﷺ physically, he led the namaz. How can it be that a person with a body is leading the namaz of only the souls? No, those at the back, all the prophets, they were also with their bodies. The Prophet ﷺ, in fact, in the hadith, he describes the bodies. He just does not say, I saw Musa, and I saw Isa, I saw Ibrahim alayhi salam. I'll give an example that I saw son of Maryam, Isa, praying, and of all the men, he has closest resemblance to Urwa bin Mas'ud al-Saqafi. That means the Prophet ﷺ is describing the body. That I didn't only see Isa alayhi salam, so I saw his body, and his body was like Urwa. So he's actually explaining to the Sahaba that think of Urwa, that is how Isa alayhi salam looked. And he says of Ibrahim alayhi salam, I also say Ibrahim alayhi salam, and you know who he looked like? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had closest resemblance to me, to himself sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So their bodies are also intact. Anas bin Malik, a hadith, reports that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that the prophets are alive in their graves. Okay, all those people, please listen to these hadiths. Where do you get your concept from? The hadith says the prophets are alive in their graves and they are praying. The word alive is used, that they are alive in their graves and they are praying. Let us move forward. The Prophet ﷺ said, invoke a lot of blessings only on the day of Friday. Why? Because on the day of Friday, Adam ﷺ was made, and on the day of Friday so many other things happened. So he's saying, ﷺ, send a lot of durood on me on Friday. Now the people ask, even after you die, Ya Rasulullah ﷺ? Even after you pass away, shall we still continue? Will our durood still reach you? Obviously, this is the beginning of Islam. They don't know about Aqidah. Okay? It was just like these people, like the world we live in, this is how they thought about death. But what did the Prophet ﷺ say? That Allah has prohibited the earth from consuming the bodies of the prophets. Allah has prohibited the earth from consuming the bodies of the prophets. So, Allah's prophets are alive, or Allah's prophet is alive and given provision. Allah के नबी जिंदा है, यही तो कह रहे हैं. और इसी को तो इमाम ने कहा, तू जिंदा है अल्लाह, तू जिंदा है अल्लाह. वो खुद से नहीं कह रहे हैं, वो हदीस की तर्जुमानी कर रहे हैं. Now, very quickly, just 2 or 3 more things left. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, does he know anything about this? Okay, he's alive, but does he know about this? Let us hear. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a witness. He is a witness. You know, on the day of Qiyamah what will happen? That all the ummah will be brought, all the nations will be brought forward. And they will say, oh, no prophet came to us. No prophet came to us, Ya Allah. Nobody came to us. So Allah said, okay, you are saying nobody came. Let me bring some witness. Who is brought as a witness? Their prophets. Their prophets are brought as witness. But they reject that. No, nobody came to us. Then, this ummah will be brought forward. That you, this ummah, all of us will be brought forward. That you give evidence that a prophet came to them. So we will say, yes, prophet did come to them. Now they will say, how can they be a witness? They came after us. Muslims, they were not even there when we were there. Like the nation of Musa alayhi salam will say, the nation of Isa alayhi salam will say, they were not even there when we were there. How can they be a witness? So what will we say? That because our Prophet said so. Because our Prophet, and when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam will give a witness, everybody will accept that. That means the Prophet knew what happened then. The Prophet knew what will happen after too. So Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a witness, and he's also a witness for us too. You know, it is stated in the hadith that every week, and this should actually alert us, every week our deeds are presented to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Every week our deed is presented to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet ﷺ says that my life is good for you, my death is also good for you. People ask, how can your death be good for us, Ya Rasulullah? He says that when I die, that means when I go to the other world, and if when your deeds are presented to me, if your deeds are good, I will praise Allah. This is after he dies, he's saying. If when your deeds are presented to me, and your deeds are good, I will praise Allah. But if your deeds are not good, he says, then I will seek forgiveness for you. Say subhanallah. That means now this is happening. That when our deeds are presented to the Prophet ﷺ and he sees good deeds, he becomes happy. So let us make him happy, brothers and sisters. Let us make our Prophet happy. Let us not make him sad. Do good deeds, come for namaz, and do all the right things, because our deeds are presented to the Prophet ﷺ, and he says, if I see your good deeds, I am happy. And if they are not good deeds, then I seek forgiveness for you. Now, the last thing I should mention before summarizing is one amal of Sayyida Aisha Siddiqa radiyallahu ta'ala. And mashallah, again, today is the day of Sayyidina Umar. Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala, you must have heard this, that he was martyred, or he was stabbed fatally in the state of namaz. Okay, he was wounded, but the namaz was still completed. He pulled forward Abdul Rahman ibn Auf radiyallahu ta'ala, who led the prayers. Namaz was still completed. Sayyidina Umar is soaking in blood, but he did not break his namaz. Namaz continued. Okay, it's a technical matter where when blood flows, the wuzu still remains or not, but still he prayed. He finished his namaz, the best he could do, and now he is on his deathbed. He says to a person, go to our mother, go to Sayyida Aisha, go to the beloved wife of the Prophet ﷺ, and ask her, request her that Umar is asking to be buried next to the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because it is the house of Sayyida Aisha, where the prophets, all the prophets, remember, are buried where they die. This is a rule for them. They are buried exactly where they died. The Prophet ﷺ died in the house of Sayyida Aisha. That is where he is buried, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So because it is the room of Sayyida Aisha, Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu is seeking permission to be buried there. When the envoy, when the messenger came, she said, Allah, I had saved this place for me. I wanted to be buried there. But look at the martaba of Sayyidina Umar. She says, I, in this matter, give preference to Umar over myself. I mean, I think this is the biggest sacrifice anyone can give. I mean, one option is to be buried there and be with her husband for the rest of, till the day of Qiyamah. Okay? And the other is to give it away to somebody else. But she says, Umar is more worthy of it. So, Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala is given the permission to be buried there. Inshallah. Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala is given the permission to be buried. I mean, one question, why does Sayyidina Umar want to be buried there? If the Prophet cannot give anything, if there is no mercy, if there is no blessing which he can give after he died, why does Sayyidina Umar want to be buried there? In fact, for Jannatul Baqi, there is hadith which actually tells of its excellence. For Jannatul Baqi. But for this place, Sayyidina Umar knew that all the blessings come from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sari bahare to yahi se hai. Sari ne'mate to yahi se hai. So he was buried there. Now, the important thing, this is where I'm coming. Sayyida Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala says that before I would go to the Roza Mubarak without proper parda, without fully covering myself. Why? Because my husband was there. And the other was my father. The other was Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala. One was my husband, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One is my father. I did not need to do parda with them. But she says, since Umar has been buried there, I don't enter the room except with complete parda. Who is she doing parda to? Or who is she doing parda with? A dead person? She is doing parda with someone who is in the other world. That means that one in the other world can also see. And she is doing parda. And this also shows the importance of parda for our sisters. The Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu ta'ala is doing parda even with people who have passed away from this world. We can't say that. Quran says, don't say they died because he's a martyr, he's a shaheed. So even those who passed away from this world, Sayyidah Aisha is doing parda with them. And we are not doing parda with people who are right in front of us. Do parda. Do parda in this world, inshallah. So all these things. And you know one reason? When you die, your wife has the option to marry again. Is that right? Your wife can marry again when you die? But for the prophets, for our Prophet ﷺ, his wives are not allowed to marry. क्यों? इसलिए कि अभी शौहर जिंदा है. अभी जिंदा है. How can they marry when the husband is alive? When the Prophet is still alive, how can Ummahatul Mu'mineen marry again? इसलिए, this is the reason why ulama say that they are not allowed to marry, because they are still alive. And as I said, the arguments could go on and on and on. But alhamdulillah, this is not just our muhabbat, this is not just our love, but this is solid proof from Quran and Hadith which proves that the Prophet ﷺ is alive. The Prophet ﷺ is there. He is still our Rasul. He is still Rahmatul lil Alameen. He is still Bashir. He is still Nazir. He is still Da'i. He is still Muzakki. He still has all the roles given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. हमारे रसूल जिंदा है, हमारी किताब भी जिंदा है, हमारा अल्लाह भी जिंदा है. इसीलिए we have to be a nation which is not sleeping, which is not dead, which is not wasting its time in front of TV and games and consoles and so on. We are a live nation and we should live up to it, inshallah. We should live up to it. So, this is an invitation for those who don't follow, for those who don't believe. They cannot bring one narration or one Quranic ayat to say that those who die, that is it, they are dead, they cease to exist. No. Remember the statement I made? We finish off with that statement that if you want to talk to someone about this, what do you say? Because they slander, there's a blatant accusation. They say, we say, the Prophet never died. No, we don't say that. The Prophet did die. Of course he died. Anbiya ko bhi ajal aani. Al-Adha ke. Anbiya ko bhi ajal aani hai. Ye kaun si aani hai? यानी कि उनको भी अजल आनी है. It will come. That does come. मगर फकत कि सिर्फ आनी है. यानी कि सिर्फ एक आन के लिए है, एक मोमेंट के लिए है. Now this आनी means a moment. Look at the beauty of the poetry of Al-Adha. एक ही लफ्ज दो मिसरों में इस्तेमाल किया अलग अलग मीनिंग में. अंबिया को भी अजल आनी है मगर इतनी कि फकत आनी है. फिर इसके बाद उनकी हयात मिस्ले साबिक नूरानी है. तो पहले की तरह वो फिर जिंदा है. अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह वो नूरानी बशर है. और हम ये कहते हुए खत्म करते हैं कि the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he died but he is not dead. He died but he is not dead. तू जिंदा है वल्ला, तू जिंदा है वल्ला, मेरी चश्मे आलम से छुप जाने वाले. Just one beautiful thing which I just remembered. Sorry Maulana. कि अभी भी लोग देखते हैं ना, people witness the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, don't they? Sayyidi Ala Hazrat, did he not actually witness the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the state of wakefulness? दीदार किया. यही तो वो चाहते थे कि I want to see my Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. ख्वाब में नहीं, ख्वाब में तो खुदा जाने कितनी बार देखा. हकीकत में he wanted to see. इसीलिए तो for 3 nights he was on his own in Masjid Nabawi Sharif. And the 3rd night when the ziyarat did not come और दिल जब टूट गया तो कहने लगे वो सुए लालाजार फिरते हैं, तेरे दिन ए बहार फिरते हैं, ए कोई क्यों पूछे तेरी बात रजा, तुझसे कुत्ते हजार फिरते हैं. तो दिल जब टूटता है ना तो ही अल्लाह उसके रसूल करीब होते हैं. तो पहले दिल को तोड़ा गया, जैसे ही दिल टूटा और ये मिसरा लिखा कि अल्लाह के रसूल सामने मौजूद और दीदार हुआ. हुजूर गौसे पाक इज डूइंग तकरीर, माशाअल्लाह, उनका खुतबा, अल्लाहु अकबर, ही इज डूइंग खुतबा, एंड वन पर्सन he dozed off, he went to sleep in the khutbah. During the khutbah he went to sleep. Sayyidina Ghaus Pak radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he goes right to that person and he does stand like this, अदब से खड़े हो गए, फिर वापस तशरीफ ले आए। लोगों ने पूछा हुजूर क्या माजरा है, व्हाट इज द मैटर? कहा ये जो बंदा है जो मेरे खिताब में सो गया है, इसकी किस्मत जागी हुई है, ये अल्लाह के रसूल का दीदार कर रहा है और अल्लाह के रसूल इसके ख्वाब में आए, तो ये कैसे हो सकता है कि अल्लाह के रसूल वहां आए और मैं बैठा रहूं? तो मैं भी खड़ा हो गया। The beautiful thing is what that person is seeing in his dream, हुजूर गौसे पाक जाते हुए देख रहे हैं, उसके ड्रीम को देख रहे हैं। तो ये डिस्टेंस और ये दूर का, ये करीब का, ये सब बेकार की बातें हैं। ये सिर्फ इट इज ओनली फॉर दिस वर्ल्ड, फॉर द पीपल ऑफ अल्लाह, फॉर द सेंट्स ऑफ अल्लाह। सैयदना गौसे पाक से पूरी दुनिया मेरे हाथ में ऐसी है जैसे कि हाथ की हथेली में एक दाना, like a small particle in my hand, I can see the entire world and I can actually have tasarruf and influence the entire world. हुजूर ख्वाजा गरीब नवाज कहते हैं कि जब तक अपनी हथेली की तरह पूरी दुनिया को न देखे वो वली हो ही नहीं सकता। तो कहा औलिया का ये मकाम, तो सैयदुल अंबिया का क्या मकाम। अल्लाह हम सबको अहले सुन्नत वल जमात पे जिंदा रखे और मसलक आला हज़रत पे हम सबको मौत अता फरमाए। व आखिर दावाना अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह।